Welcome back. Once again, air raid sirens blared across Kyiv in the early morning as Russia continues to barrage the capital city with missile attacks. According to Ukrainian officials, Russia launched 10 missiles, all of which the country's air defense system was able to shoot down. But there were casualties from the falling debris caused by the intercepts. 3 people were killed, including a 9-year-old girl and her mother, and at least a dozen more were injured. Now, more than 15 months into this war, residents in Kyiv are once again finding themselves rushing to seek shelter from Russia's attack, just as they did in the early days of Moscow's invasion. All of this comes as Zelenskyy and European leaders gather in Moldova, where he pushed for an invitation to join the NATO alliance before the Defense Pact's summit this summer. So joining me now is National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator John Kirby. John, Admiral Kirby, always good to see you. Let me start with that question on NATO. Has America's position changed on this with Ukraine? It feels like France's has, that there is a growing number of NATO allies going, you know what, there's no fear of Russia anymore. Admitting Ukraine isn't some escalatory thing with Russia anymore. We shouldn't worry about that. We should protect Ukraine. Where are we on this?
Yeah, our policy hasn't changed at all, Chuck. I mean, we still obviously support NATO's open door, and what we've said and continue to say is that discussions about membership, that's got to be between the country in question and the alliance. We certainly recognize and respect that there's a process there. What we're focused on right now, and what we believe we need to be focused on right now, not just the United States, but our allies and partners around the world, is making sure that President Zelenskyy has all the tools and capabilities he needs to be successful here in the spring. Well, now it's almost summer,
right.
Summer months and weeks and months going ahead, because if and when they choose to go on the offense, we want to make sure they're ready to do so, and that's where our heads are right now.
The munition issue. This has been something that has been of concern. As fast as we can send artillery, they seem to go through it. Are you confident we can keep them armed?
Basically, yes. We are working very, very hard to make sure that we can continue to get them additional arms and ammunition. You saw just yesterday we announced yet another package, and if you look at what's in there, it's almost all ammunition, whether it's artillery shells or new interceptor missiles for the Patriots and new air defense munitions as well. It's all in there, and we're going to keep that going. We're roughly rolling out a new package of assistance every couple of weeks. We believe we've got the funding to continue to do that through the end of this fiscal year.
Let me stay with NATO issues here a minute. I know President Biden spoke with President Erdogan after his re-election in Turkey. Did the issue of Sweden's invitation come up? And if it did, what's your sense of whether Turkey's going to support it?
Well, yes, it did come up. The president reiterated our strong desire to see Sweden become a NATO ally, and we believe they'll be a great NATO ally. They've got a very modern, capable military, and we look forward to welcoming that military inside the alliance. As for the chances, we believe that we're going to get there. But obviously, President Erdogan has got to speak for that, speak for his country's concerns, and he's done that. We know those conversations with Sweden are ongoing, but the president has said before, we're optimistic that we'll get there.
You know, when this war started, there were a lot of red lines that many folks thought Putin had when it came to the West, whether it was us or NATO, etc. And none of those red lines have, if we crossed them, Putin didn't enforce them. What have we learned about Putin and his bluster, and how much bluffing does he do? I mean, are we convinced now that he can't back up what he promises?
We've evolved the capabilities that we have provided to Ukraine as the war itself has evolved. That's really been the driving factors. What do the Ukrainians need now and in the weeks ahead? And so we're doing the best we can to provide those, because the war has changed. As you were alluding to in the opening there, I mean, you know, when they were going at Kyiv, it was really Stingers and Javelins, that Javelin anti-tank missiles that the Ukrainians needed. And then as we got into, spring and summer, it really became air defense. And of course, we're still prioritizing air defense. And now, as they get ready for a counteroffensive sometime in the weeks and months ahead, they really need what we call combined arms capabilities, armor, artillery, and additional air defense and ammunition. So we're really focused on those. And those have changed over time, and that's really been the driver, not so much what red line Putin has put out there. Now, I will say, quite honestly, Chuck, and we've talked about this, We absolutely are concerned about escalation. We don't believe it would be responsible if we weren't thinking about the potential for this war to escalate beyond the level of violence that it's already visited upon the Ukrainian people.
The Ukrainian attacks in Moscow, I know what our official stance is, but do you think they're having an impact on Russia in a way that might actually be advantageous to Ukraine?
I think it's too soon to tell, to be honest with you. I mean, these have just happened in recent days and weeks. We've seen some reaction out of the Russians in terms of their own force protection, but it's too soon to know whether this is going to be some kind of a game changer. I want to stress again, we do not support attacks on Russian soil. We do not encourage or enable the Ukrainians to do that.
Right. You know, and if they didn't want to be attacked, they shouldn't attack another country, is probably a reminder to Mr. Putin. Very quickly, China. I know President Biden, Secretary Blinken, there's this desire to de-escalate. It looks like the Chinese do not have a desire to de-escalate. The ignoring of Secretary Austin by his counterpart in China. I thought China wanted to de-escalate. Are we getting mixed messages, or is this decidedly they want to have a more confrontational approach?
I think in general the president is optimistic that we're going to be able to get all the lines of communication back open. Most of them still are, Chuck. I mean, we still have an embassy there in Beijing. We still have the ability to communicate directly with the PRC. Now, this military channel has been closed down since then Speaker Pelosi visited Taiwan, and we want to get that back open, and that's one of the reasons why we want to get Secretary Blinken on an airplane over to Beijing as soon as is practical, so that he can start to open up some of those shutdown lines of communication. When you look at what happened over the weekend with the intercept, unsafe and unprofessional intercept over the South China Sea, that's a classic example of why it's really important to get these military channels back open.
John Kirby, the National Security Coordinator, retired Admiral. Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure to get your perspective. And thank you all for being with us this hour. By the way, in the 3 minutes that I was interviewing John Kirby, the Hurricane Center has upgraded that storm. It is now a tropical depression in the Gulf.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.